They told us Tiffany Meek was just a grieving mother fighting for bail. But what if I told you her own affidavit holds secrets the world wasn't meant to see? Details missing, timelines twisted, evidence ignored. Was it an oversight or the unraveling of a lie? If you truly fight for justice for voiceless children, pay attention, because the system might have missed it, but we didn't. But before we dive into this, if you believe in fighting for justice, this is your moment to stand with us. We've just crossed 1,000 subscribers because of your incredible support, and now we're aiming for 2,000, then 5,000, and yes, 10,000. So go ahead, leave your digital fingerprint on that subscribe button, because wherever you are, when this vision becomes reality, we'll send our gratitude straight to you. Let's keep building this justice-driven community together. On the surface, this was a mother demanding her freedom, claiming she was unfairly targeted while grieving for her murdered son, Jayden-Lee. But inside the courtroom, beneath the fluorescent lights and the weight of hushed conversations, another story began to surface, one hidden in contradictions, missing pieces, and statements that didn't add up. Tiffany said she left her flat alone to refresh herself, but she left that part out of her sworn affidavit. Her timeline placed her in two places at once: at the hospital, waiting for the pathologist, and at her flat, while a photographer arrived. She claimed evidence was found for the first time on May 16th, but police say they saw it days earlier. These aren't small inconsistencies. They're fractures in the foundation of her defense, and cracks that may hold the truth of what happened to Jayden-Lee Meek. Let's talk about that timeline, because in cases like these, it's never just about what is said, but when it was said and what was left unsaid. Tiffany's affidavit stated she returned to her flat alone to refresh herself, but here's the catch. She left that out of her sworn statement to the court. Why would a grieving mother forget to mention she went home alone while her son's death was under investigation? Then there's the problem with the photographer's arrival. According to Tiffany, the photographer came to her flat at 1 p.m. on May 14th to capture evidence. But Tiffany also said she was at the hospital, waiting for the pathologist, around the same time. How could she be in two places at once on the day her child's death became a homicide case? And let's not forget the evidence. Tiffany claimed the school bag, uniform, and blood-stained items were only discovered on May 16th. But police testified they had seen these items days earlier, photographed them, and left them in place for forensic testing. Was this a simple mistake or a deliberate effort to cloud the investigation? These contradictions aren't just inconsistencies. They could determine whether Tiffany Meek walks free or faces a lifetime behind bars. Now let's get into the most unsettling detail: blood evidence in the bathtub. Tiffany's supporters say it's impossible that blood-soaked underwear was in that tub on May 16th, claiming too many people had used that bathroom for it to go unnoticed. But the investigating officer didn't mince words. He testified there was an item with traces of blood in the tub, a towel leading towards the drain. Yet when it came to the underwear itself, he didn't see blood. Was this a moment of investigative oversight, or is there something more sinister here? Meanwhile, Tiffany's narrative shifted from cooperation to allegations of being framed, suggesting the police planted evidence to secure her arrest. But the officer shot back, firmly stating that framing Tiffany was never on the table. He claimed every procedure from collecting the pillow with blood traces to sending samples for DNA analysis was done by the book. But here's where it gets even messier. While the toxicology and histology reports came back clear, no poison, no drugs, it was the blunt force trauma that told the story of Jayden's final moments. The defensive wounds were absent, but the scalp injuries were undeniable. Is this the tragic case of a system twisting facts to find a mother guilty? Or is this a mother desperately twisting facts to hide what really happened to her child? Now the court shifted its gaze from the bloodstains to Tiffany's personal circumstances. She claimed she wasn't a flight risk, that she was a single mother separated since 2022, with nowhere else to run and no support to flee the country. She insisted her family depended on her income, that she needed to return to work, and that without bail, she and her mother would face financial ruin. But the investigating officer wasn't convinced. According to him, Tiffany's employer confirmed she was still on leave, and would remain employed until at least September, destroying the urgency in her claim. And when it came to her alternative address, her father's home, the officer raised eyebrows. The father had no lease, only a verbal agreement, and couldn't clarify how long he would stay there. There was no clear trail of stability. And here's the chilling part. The officer, under oath, admitted he couldn't guarantee Tiffany wouldn't flee if granted bail, especially if she faced the possibility of a heavy sentence. A life sentence loomed over Tiffany Meek if found guilty, and with that weight, the fear of her vanishing before trial was real. The system must decide, does a mother's financial hardship outweigh the risk of her disappearing, leaving her son's case unresolved forever? As the court delved deeper, the prosecution turned to the harsh realities under Section 60 of the Criminal Procedure Act, factors that could deny Tiffany Meek her freedom. They argued this wasn't just about financial hardship or a mother's tears. It was about public outrage, the community of Fleurhof, already grieving and angry, demanding accountability for Jayden-Lee's death. The prosecution questioned whether Tiffany's release would undermine the administration of justice, stirring unrest in a community that had once seen her as a grieving mother, now seeing her as the prime suspect. Then came the critical concern, witness safety. Would Tiffany, if released, seek to influence, intimidate, or manipulate witnesses to protect herself from a potential life sentence? The investigating officer, pausing under cross-examination, admitted that if Tiffany were confronted outside, her instinct for self-preservation could lead to unpredictable outcomes. Papers rustled as the prosecutor listed the potential sentence, life imprisonment if found guilty. The weight of that sentence alone, the court was told, was enough to make anyone consider vanishing before trial. And the courtroom fell into a heavy silence, each word hanging like a stone in the air, as the judge prepared to consider whether Tiffany Meek should walk out of that dock or remain behind bars as her trial loomed. Tiffany's defense rose with quiet urgency, countering the heavy accusations laid before the court. They argued that Tiffany was not a flight risk, emphasizing her 17 years in the community, her consistent employment, and her ties to family still rooted in Fleurhof. They painted a picture of a mother crushed under the weight of grief, not a cold-blooded killer looking to evade justice. Tiffany's affidavit was read aloud, her voice silent, but her words filling the courtroom. "If I am not released, my family will suffer. I am the breadwinner. We are not wealthy. We are just trying to survive." She promised she would face her trial, that she would not run, that she had no means or support to flee, and that her children's memories would forever tether her to the community she now stood accused in. But as her defense lawyer spoke, Tiffany's eyes betrayed a flicker of fear, her hands trembling around the edge of the dock. It was the fear of a woman facing the possibility that she would not walk out of that courtroom, that her freedom could be exchanged for the cold walls of a holding cell as she awaited the trial of her life. The community watched, split between sympathy and suspicion. Outside the courthouse, protesters held signs demanding justice for Jayden-Lee, while a smaller group whispered that maybe, just maybe, Tiffany was being framed by a system too eager to close a tragic case. Inside, the judge's gavel fell, silencing the whispers as the court adjourned to deliberate. Tiffany Meek's fate, her freedom, her future, and the truth behind Jayden-Lee's final moments hung in the balance, waiting for the court's decision. Outside the courthouse, the winter air felt sharper, as though the cold itself had joined the crowd demanding justice for Jayden-Lee. Protesters lined the sidewalks, clutching handmade signs, "Justice for Jayden, no bail for child killers." The voiceless deserve our voices. Their chants echoed against the courthouse walls, a raw reminder that for many, Tiffany was not a grieving mother, but the prime suspect in a child's brutal death. Camera crews jostled for position as Tiffany emerged, flanked by her legal team. Her eyes, swollen from tears, scanned the crowd, searching for a friendly face in a sea of judgment. But there was none. Microphones were thrust toward her, reporters shouting, "Tiffany, did you kill your son? Why should the court trust you won't run? Do you have anything to say to the community?" Tiffany kept her head down, her lawyer's hand on her back, guiding her to the waiting vehicle. The tension was electric, thick with suspicion, grief, and the unspoken question, if Tiffany didn't kill Jayden-Lee, then who did? As the vehicle pulled away, the protesters' chants continued, colliding with the flashing lights of the cameras. This wasn't just another court hearing, it had become a national spectacle. Back inside the courthouse, the judge's chambers held the weight of a pending decision. Tiffany's future hung in limbo, freedom to prepare for trial with her family, or confinement as the investigation circled closer around her. And somewhere in Fleurhof, Jayden-Lee's memory hovered over it all, demanding answers that no one seemed ready to give. Inside the courtroom, a heavy silence settled as the judge leafed through Tiffany's affidavit, each turn of the page sounding like a countdown. In the gallery, Jayden-Lee's family members sat close, their grief raw, their eyes fixed on Tiffany, as if searching for any flicker of remorse or truth. Some neighbors had come to watch too, whispering among themselves, "She was crying when she reported him missing. But why did the dogs lead back to her flat? I just want to know what happened to that little boy." Tension pulsed as the prosecutor rose, reminding the court that Tiffany faced Schedule 5 charges so severe that if convicted, she could face life imprisonment. The prosecutor's voice was firm. "My lady, the state opposes bail. The accused is a flight risk. The community's outrage is justified, and the evidence points to her involvement." Tiffany's lawyer countered, highlighting her deep ties to the community, her employment status, and her stated commitment to face trial. "My lady, my client has nowhere to run. She has suffered the unimaginable loss of her child, and is here to clear her name." But in the shadows of every word hung the forensic details: the blood-stained pillow, the school bag found when it shouldn't have been, the blunt force head injury that no one could explain. And outside, the chants of the protesters could still be heard, faint but persistent. Justice for Jayden. As the judge adjourned the hearing to consider Tiffany's bail, one truth remained. The fight for justice had only just begun, and in this case, everyone had something to lose. As court adjourned, the air in the Roodepoort Magistrate's court felt heavier than ever. Families held each other close, unsure whether they were comforting each other or bracing for the next blow. Outside, neighbors whispered, glancing at Tiffany as she was led back to holding cells, her expression unreadable. Is she a grieving mother caught in a storm of accusations, or is the community's rage justified, with the justice system finally closing in? These questions will haunt Fleurhof until the truth is dragged into the light. And as the next court date looms, one reality remains. A child is dead, a family is broken, and a community will not rest until justice speaks louder than rumors. We will be there, bringing you every update, every testimony, and every moment this case unfolds, until justice for Jayden-Lee Meek is no longer just a promise, but a verdict. They say justice is blind, but in cases like this, justice is slow, bruised, and bleeding. A child is gone. A mother is accused. A community is torn between grief and anger, between trust and suspicion. The courtroom is silent now, but outside, people are whispering, what really happened to Jayden-Lee? And here's the uncomfortable truth. Sometimes the people closest to you are the ones hiding the darkest secrets. But sometimes, the system that promises justice becomes a machine that crushes the innocent. Which one is it this time? That's what we're here to find out. If you believe no child should die in silence, and no lie should bury the truth, support this mission. Click subscribe, drop a comment on what you think Tiffany Meek is hiding, or if you think the system is framing her, and let's build pressure for real justice together. Because in this world overflowing with evil, it's only when we stand up, speak up, and stay watching that we can stop it.